not collaging and actually, and just talking. Do you remember the time we met to have a conversation? I think we had a meeting over a bottle of wine. And we actually never opened the bottle of wine because we were so busy talking. But during that chat, I actually told Jamie, I want to be a travel artist. And I didn't know what that actually meant, but I knew I liked painting and I liked traveling. So the picture you saw before is actually because I should be packing right now, because I'm heading to Riccione, Italy tomorrow to start a art project. So I'm pretty excited about that. So rather than packing and figuring out the itinerary, I really wanted to figure out the why behind it, because I think that will help me build the project. So that's why it was a last minute sign up to do this, and thank you, Jamie. But I wanted to ask you guys a question. When you are out traveling and you see something beautiful, something compelling, do you suddenly have the urge to go shopping? Show of hands, do you go shopping? Buy souvenirs. You want to remember what you just did. So I've read some books and I have some theories on that I want to pitch to you today. And maybe a solution for not blowing your travel budget on shopping. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and talk a bit about my art practice. The story I always tell is I'm a self-taught artist. I grew up in a family of engineers. And doing this talk made me rethink a little bit about that. So my father's an electrical engineer. My older brother's an aerospace engineer. My little sister is a chemical engineer who teaches at Dalhousie. And I became a mechanical engineer. So engineering's in my blood. But one of the things my father taught us three kids was to look at the world around us and constantly be asking questions. So as kids going out to play at the park, he would ask us things like, and that's my dad and my brother, and I don't know if you guys know, but all engineers wear an iron ring, so that was my ring ceremony, and my dad was proud to put the ring on my finger. But anyways, he would ask us questions as kids. Why do you think that's made out of wood instead of steel? Why do you think the ceiling, why is that ducting there, and why is that pipe bigger than that pipe? So just constantly making us ask questions of why the things around us are the way they are. And that made me look at the world in a different light. So you'll see me even downtown Vancouver always looking up and looking at around. And I think that's exactly why I paint what I see. It inspires me. I'm compelled to document that. I look at the world with a lot of curiosity. And so I'm actually, maybe I didn't learn how to, the mechanics of painting from my family, but I learned how to look at the world and ask questions. And that's another reason why I love to travel so much, is because I see new things that I can ask more questions. So about a little over a year ago, I got into reading philosophy. So Deb, I enjoyed your Aristotle quote. I started with the ancient philosophers, so I was reading Plato and Aristotle, and I read a fantastic book comparing the two philosophers, and I actually put on my bucket list that I wanted to see this painting at the Vatican by Raphael, where you have Aristotle and Plato, Aristotle and Plato in the middle, and I got to see it in October, so I was excited to see that. So since then, I've been collecting philosophy books, and anytime I have a moment, I'll beeline it to the chapter section and start reading philosophy, and I love the fact that a lot of these books you can just open up and get a quote, and it kind of fits with your day. It works. So there's one book here called The Art of Travel, and like I was telling Jamie, I want to be a travel artist, so art and travel, this title, I was compelled to open up this book. And has anyone read this book? Every chapter in here could be an artist statement for me. It's a beautiful book, and I want to elaborate a little more on chapter number 8. It's about, the blank. Possessing beauty, that's what it is. So chapter 8's on possessing beauty, and it in particular talks about an artist by the name of John Ruskin. So this is John Ruskin. He was born 1819 to 1900s, and one of the things he was frustrated about was that people were rushing around. They just built this new train system in Europe, and Thomas Cook was doing travel tours, and people were rushing to go from city to city. Cameras were just invented. He realized that it didn't append to people's, when they were looking around, the camera didn't make them see more. It actually just made them not look and just take a picture, kind of like what we do today. So it was a really interesting read because here he's from 200 years ago, and it makes sense today. So he said, when you see something beautiful, there's 3 things that we're compelled to do. The first one is to take a picture. The second one is to buy a souvenir. Or the third one is to leave something behind. So this is a picture I took 5 years ago, and it's where people leave locks behind on the Seine River. And so he had another idea that he wrote some books and he was trying to teach people. And it was to sketch, to take 10 minutes and look at the scene, understand the scene, because when you're sketching it, you have to look at the world around you and actually figure out how are those branches connected to the tree trunk? How is the water flowing out the fountain? So this is me at Trevi Fountain in Rome. And prior to this, I only had a studio practice. I did try to go do plein air painting, but if you saw me, I usually had 2 big Tupperware bins that I carried with me and my studio easel, because I would just go to the group tours and bring everything with me. And so it wasn't sustainable, it was stressful, on and on. So when I read this chapter of this book, I said, wait a second, I'm not here to sell that work. Why don't I just take that sketchbook and start drawing? So this was what I started sketching. And I think it's important to start doing this type of sketching when you are traveling, because that's when you are taking moments to look around and you really want to understand what you're seeing and thus remember it. And that was one of the things that John Wright said, that if you, by sketching it, you'll remember it, and then it'll be a happier memory because you know all of those details. And that's truly what I found when I was just wandering around Sicily and Rome. And so I tried when I came back to Vancouver to keep this going. It's tough because you get into the daily grind. I work full time, so trying to sneak out 10 minutes to go sketch is challenging at times. But what's interesting, and I wanted to share, for instance, one sketch. I remember this moment so well. It's South Granville. I sat at the restaurant across the street from Meinhardt. It was closed at the time. Someone actually came to ask me, when does this restaurant open? I had no idea. There was a hubcap actually sitting against the flower display here. I don't know why that's there. Brad, my husband, I told him to sit across the street so he could be in one of my paintings. This woman had a shopping cart filled with pylons. I don't know why, but it was weird to paint, so that's why there's kind of yellow and orange in there. And it was December 24th, so I was a little bit anxious because the next day I was going to Ottawa for Christmas and leaving Brad alone for Christmas. Once again, I like to travel at Christmas time for some reason. So I remember all of those details, and it's a special moment even when I look back at that sketch. So I was hoping to compel all of you to try sketching instead of buying souvenirs. So that connects back to the speech. But so tomorrow I leave for Emilia-Romagna. I'm going to be going to Bologna, Riccione, Ravenna, and I'm going to be sketching, and I'm negotiating with the hotel to set up a tour for next year. And rather than having it as a painting workshop, I want to have it more, let's go out and look at the world around us and sketch. And so I'm joining a cycling group this time around, and I'm packing extra watercolor kits to try to teach non-artists to do this. But I put all my stuff down here because hopefully you can virtually come with me and follow me on my travels. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.